Okay. So, Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to our Gita Gyan level 2. So, we will get started with our prayers. So, please join us if you can. Om Ajnanaatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadan Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunathan Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vignaminashana Simhaiti Namini Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayatim Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Mande Sri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Mishwaram Om Tatsat. All right, so we will start off with this prayer mantra as well. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are discussing Gita Mahatmya, and this will be chapter 10, the glories of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10. So Gita Mahatmya, as you know, is a conversation which is recorded in Padma Purana. And this is a conversation that takes place between Lord Shiva, primarily between Lord Shiva and and Parvati. But Lord Shiva will quote another conversation which took place between Narayana and Lakshmi Devi. So from that conversation, he will be telling Parvati Devi the glories of each chapter. Because Parvati Devi, in the beginning, she would ask, what are the glories of the Bhagavad Gita? So we have now come to chapter 10. So Lord Shiva says, my dear Parvati, I will now relate to you the glories of the 10th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita as related by Sri Vishnu to Lakshmi Devi, which in itself is a stairway to the spiritual world. So simply by hearing these glories of Bhagavad Gita, we go through so much of purification, and in this way, it builds the stairway for us to go back to the spiritual world. So this story takes place in Varanasi, Kashipuri. So Varanasi is a very famous city, right? The oldest living city in the world currently. It's in the banks of the river Ganga, and very beautiful. So this is Kashipuri, also known as Varanasi, also known as Banaras. It's famous for many things. It's estimated to have about 23,000 temples in that city alone. And very famous temples there are also. Especially, there's a very famous temple to Lord Shiva, and this is the Vishwanath temple, right? So this is a Vishwanath temple, and this is the Shiva Linga at Vishwanath temple. There are many other old temples as well. There's also a temple to Krishna, very old temple there. Radha Govinda, if I'm not mistaken. So this story, Lord Shiva is narrating to Parvati. He's saying, in Kashipuri, there was a Brahmana of the name Dhira Buddhi. Dhira Buddhi. Buddhi means intelligence. Dhira means very sober, very sober intelligence. So that's the meaning of the name. Anyway, this is the name of the Brahmana. It's called Dhira Buddhi. And Lord Shiva says, this Dhira Buddhi is as dear to me as Nandi, my carrier. Who's Nandi? Nandi, we know, is Lord Shiva's Vahana. So it's the bull. And Lord Shiva is saying, this person, this Brahmana, Dhira Buddhi, is as dear to me as how Nandi is as dear to me. So we all know the very special position of Nandi. So in the same way, so we will be curious, how is that so? And then he explains to Parvati, he was always peaceful and all of his senses are fixed in the glorification of Krishna. So in this way, this is the nature of this Dhira Buddhi Brahmana. And then he will give the story. So what he will do is, because he is so dear to him, everywhere that this Dhira Buddhi Brahmana would go, Lord Shiva says, I would personally follow this Brahmana with great love so that I could protect him and I could do whatever service that I may to this personality, to this Brahmana. So this is very interesting. So these are great personalities. Lord Shiva is a very, very great personality. But this is the nature of great personalities. They like to serve others, and especially great devotees of great, like even Lord Krishna, he is God himself, but he likes to serve the Brahmanas. And Sudama, when Sudama came to visit him, he personally received Sudama, his friend, a Brahmana friend, and he washed his feet. Just this is the kind of loving devotional reciprocation that takes place between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. So the who is master and who is servant becomes very blurred, but the devotees always view the Lord as their master. So in the same way, Lord Shiva is also a great personality, and he is also in this way serving Dhira Buddhi. So wherever, of course, he doesn't appear right in front of him, but he will be blessing. His blessings are always there. His blessings and his protection is personally always there on Dhira Buddhi. So seeing my activities one day, because I've always followed Dhira Buddhi around, one day my eternal servant, Sage Bringagirdi. So if you go to some temples, Shiva temple, you will see, this is a picture of Shiva temple, where Lord Shiva is sitting on Nandi, and there will be a sage who will be standing next to Lord Shiva and praying to Lord Shiva. So this sage is called Bringi Riddhi. And there's a very special feature about this sage. This sage has 3 legs. So you can see here, 1, 2, 3 legs. So you'll see next time when you go to Shiva temple, you can see when the murals in the you can identify this sage. So he's an eternal servitor of Lord Shiva, a great devotee of Lord Shiva, and he remains with Lord Shiva in Kailash. So This sage one day asked Lord Shiva, "Oh Lord Shiva, why are you always going about and serving this Brahmana, Dhira Buddhi? Why are you doing this? What kind of austerities did this Dhira Buddhi do that you are yourself, such a great personality, you are Mahadev, and you are yourself personally rendering service to this person? So please tell me." So then Lord Shiva launches into another story. So he says, okay, so after asked by this Bringi Riddhi, so then I replied as follows. Once in Kailash Parvata, Kailash, this is Mount Kailash in earth, but Mount Kailash also goes beyond our subtle sight. So it is there in the higher realms as well. And what we see in our gross eyes is just one small part of Kailash. We cannot see further unless with the blessings of Lord Shiva. So it's in the Himalayas. This is Kailash mountain. It's very unique, this mountain. It looks a bit like a linga. If you see from far, it looks like a linga. So once in Kailash, in the heavenly regions, in the Shiva Loka of Kailash, in the garden known as Punag. So there are many, many beautiful celestial gardens which are far greater in beauty compared to Swargaloka, because Kailash is beyond in the, it's very high up in the material world. It's beyond the material world actually. It's in the border between the material world and the spiritual world. So over there in this area, in the one of the gardens known as Punag, I was enjoying sitting in the moonlight. And suddenly there was a great wind which caused the trees to shake with a very loud noise. So Lord Shiva is telling the story. And then what happened? What happened was a great bird came to that area. A shadow, first a shadow was cast all around the area, all around the mountain, was moving. Suddenly in the sky, a very large bird followed that shadow. And this bird it actually looks like a swan, but it's very huge. The shadow of it covered a lot of trees and everything. But this swan was black in color, blackish. And it had the color of, actually the color of a rain cloud. So blackish rain cloud kind of a color. Due to the flapping of its wings, it was causing trees to shake and the dust to swirl. Suddenly, the bird landed on the ground and offered its prostrated, respectful obeisances to me. And at the same time, it offered me a beautiful golden lotus flower. And then after this, the swan said, "Oh Mahadev, all glories to you, the shelter of all. You are the protector of the devotees. You have control over their senses." So Lord Shiva is known as the protector of the devotees of the Lord. So that's why he has a certain, he's known also as Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. Shambhu is the greatest of all Vaishnavas. That is the Tattva. And he is the greatest of all the demigods, Devatas, being partially an incarnation of the Supreme Lord himself, not a full incarnation. He's what we call a Guna avatar. So in this way, Lord Shiva was being glorified by this swan, that you are very great, you are the foremost of the devotees of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Great souls such as Brihaspati. Brihaspati is Guru, the Guru of the Devatas, Jupiter, right? So Brihaspati, the priest of the Devatas, he is always chanting your glories. But even the 1,000-headed Anantasesh is not fully able to describe your glories. You are very great. So what to speak of me? I'm just a bird with some small intelligence. So the swan is saying like this to himself, to Mahadev, to Shankara. So after hearing this, right, after hearing the bird's prayer, then the Lord Shiva asked, "Who are you?" where are you coming from? Of course, he knows, but still, this is Leela. So therefore, the conversation goes on. So who are you? Where are you coming from? You look like a swan, but your bodily color is that of a crow. So then the swan said, please understand that I am the swan carrier of Lord Brahma himself. You know, Lord Brahma, his carrier is a swan. His vahana is a swan. So very large and very beautiful, very majestic. And the reason for me having a black color, I wasn't always black. I was white, like camphor. Very, very beautiful. And then now I am blackish, but I will now tell you what is the reason that, and also I will tell you how I got this golden lotus flower, which I'm offering to you. And then he tells, the swan launches into another story. So story within a story, within a story. So then the swan says, once I was flying after my service to Lord Brahma, I was flying over the region of Surat. You know, in Bharatvarsha, in India, there's an ancient city called Surat. Even now it's still there. It's in Gujarat. If you go to Gujarat, the capital of Gujarat is Surat. And in that area was previously called as Saurashtra. That is the ancient name of that city. So in that city, while I was flying over that city, that area, there was a beautiful lake. So this is and in that lake, there were many wonderful heavenly lotus flowers, very, very beautiful lotus flowers. And some are golden, some are reddish, pinkish, all kinds of colors, very beautiful. I had been enjoying there. So when I saw it, I landed in that lake to enjoy that in you know, swans, they like to go and enjoy in the lotus lake and everything. And then just as I was enjoying it, and then finally I was just about to leave and I was flying. And as I was flying, I crossed over some parts of the lake. And suddenly what happened, I dropped from the sky. I fell down from the sky and I lost my color and I became blackish. I lost my whitish color and I became blackish and I fell on the water in the lake. And at that time, I was amazed and I was perplexed. And I was sitting down in the water amongst the lotuses, and I was thinking, how have I fallen down? I am a servant carrier of Brahma. How has my body, which was white like camphor, turned into this black color? So while thinking in this way, suddenly the swan heard a voice coming from the center of the lake. So in the center of the lake, there were some golden lotuses. And over there, the voice was coming from that area. And it said, oh, swan, get up. I will tell you why you fell and why your body turned in this color. It was a feminine voice. And suddenly from the middle of that lake, amongst the golden lotuses, a beautiful damsel appeared. So she's heavenly, celestial damsel. She appeared amongst the lotuses and she came over to the swan. And then she told the swan, right? After and when the swan saw her, the swan circumambulated her, went around this lady because he could understand that this is not an ordinary personality, very, very great personality. And then he inquired for the reason of why he fell down. Please tell me what happened to me. And then she replied, oh, black swan, while you were flying, you flew over me. So unfortunately, that was considered an offense because you flew over me. And in this way, you fell down immediately. So this is fine culture that we are learning from these stories. Many things we can learn from the stories, like the culture, the morality, the dharma, and the duties, and also, of course, spiritual topics as well. So that's why I'm describing it with all the color and everything. So one of the things is like, it's considered a sign of respect. These are subtle respect. We don't cross over, like, if a personality is sitting down, when elders are sitting down, we don't cross over them, cross over their legs or cross over their body or anything like that. So this is fine culture. So, and in the same way, the swan, unfortunately, it crossed over its lady. So that was considered an offense. It was not the lady who caused the swan to fall down. It's just that that's how karma works. So immediately the swan dropped and fell, and that's the reason. So then the lady was telling me, telling the swan, when I saw you fall down, I felt sorry for you. So this is the nature of great personalities also. They are not vindictive. They are not. They are always very forgiving, and they always want to do good for others. So this lady was telling, I felt sorry for you, thus I called you here. And then she said, when I opened my mouth, the scent emanating from it, the fragrance from my mouth was able to purify at one time, 7,000 black bees who immediately attained Vaikuntha Loka simply from the fragrance of my mouth. So I am just staying here for a particular pastime. And once I'm done, you are the last part of my pastime. So since you have come, I will tell you the story of why you fell down and how I came to be here. My dear king of birds, I have such power that I am able to purify living entities. I'm able to purify other living entities to the extent that they are able to go back to Vaikuntha. This is my power. And since you have fallen down, let me tell you the story, and by this you will get purified. And in this way, she started telling her story. So story within story, within story, within story. So she said, previously, before this birth, I was a Brahmana girl. I was a nice Brahmana girl, brought up in a nice family. My father would teach me very nicely how to be a very chaste lady. Chaste means the training for men is austerity. This is how it goes in those days. You see, the men are trained to control their senses. And ladies' training, according to Vedic training, is chastity. To be very, very faithful and very careful in the service to their husbands. So that is basically the understanding in those days. And it's still the dharma. And according to this, she was saying how she was trained very nicely by the father. And after that, when the time came, she was given in charity to a suitable husband by the father. And in this way, she was serving the father very carefully, serving the husband very carefully and everything, very faithfully. So that is her upbringing and all. And then one day she found a myna bird. Where this is a myna bird. And then this myna bird was having a broken leg, a broken wing or something. And then she carried this myna bird and she started taking care of it. But eventually she got very attached to this myna bird. And in the care of this myna bird, she would become more and more engrossed to spend time with this myna bird. And somehow, while she was doing this, she started neglecting the duties to her husband and to her family. And she had a distraction. So she got distracted by this myna bird, and she will many times neglect many of her duties and so forth. And one day she neglected some major duty, some major issue. So like this, it has been going on. But one day she did something serious, and due to this neglect, the husband, out of anger, cursed the wife, and she said, because of your neglect, because of your lack of your complete engrossment to this myna bird, you will become a myna bird in your next life. So in this way, he cursed her. And then this lady, she immediately took birth as a Maina bird. So this lady I'm talking about, her name was Padmavati. And she became a Maina bird in her next life. But no loss entirely, because due to her chastity, due to her wonderful service and her training and her upbringing, she was able to remember her past life. And at the same time, she maintained her virtue. So though she had to clear the reaction of the curse as a Maina bird, due to providence, due to fate, somehow fate guided her towards good association. So this Maina bird came in contact with a group of sages. Due to her many past austerities and faithful service, she was guided towards a group of sages. So these sages lived in an ashram, and they saw this Maina bird, and this Maina bird will always come there and will always stay there and hop about, and then sometimes they will give food to this Maina bird. And there was a young girl in amongst the sages who was a daughter of one of the sages, and she would take care of this Maina bird also, and sometimes she will give food. And in this way, the Maina bird was always hanging around with these sages. So what happened was, one day, one of those sages were reciting, of course, they were reciting many other things, but one day they were reciting the Bhagavad Gita. And when they were reciting the Bhagavad Gita, you guessed it, yes, they were reciting chapter 10. So when they recited chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita, this Maina bird could hear. And the Maina bird could also, because she remembered her past life, she knew this Maina bird was not an ordinary Maina bird. She could remember her past life, and she could understand this chanting of this Bhagavad Gita chapter 10. And she heard it, and immediately after hearing this chapter 10 chanting, the Maina bird later on gave up its life. And after giving up its life, it regained back her, she got a human-like form, but she got a divine form, a very special, beautiful form. This is the form of that lady in the lake. So this is the original story of the Lady of the Lake. So this is, in the story of Arthur and the Round Table, there's also the story of Lady and the Lake. So this is the Lady of the Lake. Many of those stories in the West and all, they have their links to Vedic culture. So anyway, this lady, she was not an ordinary lady. She was extremely wonderful. She was extremely purified, and she was had extraordinary powers. She's a celestial lady. She became a Apsara. And this Apsara means heavenly lady. That means she's one of those heavenly ladies like Urvasi, Ramba, Menaka. But she was special. She was not just like them. She could remember her past life also. And she had certain special abilities. Simply by her fragrance was so great that just by the fragrance of her body, many living entities were liberated simply by inhaling. So anyway, one day she flew on a what we call a pushpaka vimana. The heavenly people, they will fly about, they will visit each other, they will go to different areas on heavenly aeroplanes. So for want of a better word, we use the word aeroplane, but it's a aerial vehicle. Very amazing, very beautiful. So sometimes, we will say UFO and all that, but this is like aerial vehicle, very beautiful. And she was flying in that vehicle, and she crossed over this area of Surashtra. And in that area, she saw this lotus lake. So when she saw this lotus lake, she was very enthralled by the beauty of this lake, and she came. So she landed in that area, and she came and she took bath in that lake. So while she was bathing in that lake, right? So what happened was she was bathing without clothes, and while she was bathing, suddenly at that time, Durvasa Muni appeared. So Durvasa Muni is, is the same Muni that got chased by the Sudarshan Chakra in the Ambarish Maharaj pastime. So Durvasa Muni is a partial incarnation of Lord Shiva, a partial Amsa, a splinter incarnation of Lord Shiva. And because he's a part of the splinter incarnation of Lord Shiva represents the mode of ignorance. So therefore, this Durvasa Muni would always be a little angry. He gets angry very quickly. But he's a very powerful Muni. So he has lots of powers. And even the Devatas are scared of him sometimes. And in this way, Durvasa Muni, he can very easily be pleased. He can very easily be angered. So he reflects the mood of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is also like that. One of the names of Lord Shiva is Asutosh. Asutosh means very easily pleased. At the same time, he's also very easily angered. So, but this is his Leela within this material creation. But Lord Shiva is actually beyond this material creation. So anyway, so Durvasa Muni came to that scene, and it is considered an offense for someone to see a girl bathing without clothes, to see the naked body of the girl. So, but because Durvasa Muni came, and then this lady, she didn't know, so very quickly she realized Durvasa Muni is there. So because there was no time to wear clothes or anything like that, she immediately transformed herself into 5 golden lotuses. So these 5 golden lotuses, 2 lotus for the arms, 2 lotus for the legs, and 1 big lotus for the head and the body. So 5 different lotuses like this on the water. But it was too late. Durvasa Muni already saw the naked form of this Padmavati. So out of anger, because to see a naked form of a lady is actually losing, unless that lady is the wife, is actually losing Sukruti. They lose their pious credits. It's forbidden, it's sinful. So therefore, because Durvasa Muni already saw, he got angry. So because you have done this, right? Don't you have culture? So in that way, he immediately cursed Padmavati. And he said, because you have taken this form of the lotus, may you always remain in this form of the lotus. Actually, that is also part of the type of curse which is part of the punishment which is given in scripture. In the law of karma, it is described that for those people who like to go about naked, who go flaunt themselves in public without clothes and things like that, the punishment for such people is they become trees in their next life. So because the tree is just like that, standing without anything, without clothes and everything. So that's the idea. But here she transformed into lotuses. So Durvasa Muni, he was inspired to curse her in this way. May you remain in this way as a lotus. So after that, immediately Durvasa Muni disappeared. And this is the story. So therefore, in this way, I was transformed here. But actually, the curse didn't really affect me, Padmavati will say, because I could remember I was reciting the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So as I was being cursed, I was reciting, due to my memory, the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which I heard in my previous life as a Maina bird, which I could remember until now. So therefore, the curse didn't really affect me. So I can be both. And the curse of when a Brahmana or a sage curses, the curse cannot go false. So therefore, the curse also came true, but at the same time, I can have 2 different forms. I can be lotus. I can also be this celestial, beautiful form of the lady. So in this way, the Padmavati, the celestial lady, was telling the swan about the story. So ultimately, the point of this entire Leela is to pass the glory about the chapter 10 Bhagavad Gita. So the moment she spoke this story to this swan, and she told the swan also, now that I have told you this story, you have become purified. Since you fell down, now you will regain back your flight. You will be able to fly again, but you will maintain your color, because so that it reminds you of this pastime about this story, and still you will be very your color will be, though it's blackish, it will be very beautiful. And then she blessed the swan this way, and then she immediately boarded on a heavenly aeroplane. This is not just a heavenly aeroplane. This is a much greater aeroplane. It's a Vaikuntha aeroplane. It's coming from the spiritual world. So having done her duty in this material world, she became freed simply by hearing the Bhagavad Gita chapter 10. She spoke this story to the swan, and in this way transferred the glory of this story. And after that, she herself purified many others, like the bees and also the swan. Later you will hear how the swan also goes back to Vaikuntha. And in this way, she also went back to Vaikuntha, the spiritual abode. And basically, this is the glory of the Bhagavad Gita of chapter 10, how Padmavati went back to Vaikuntha. So the swan, out of memory of this story, it plucked one of the lotus flowers, the golden lotus flowers, which was also Padmavati. And in this way, the swan decided to go and offer this lotus to Lord Shiva. Because the swan couldn't go to Vaikuntha. Swan cannot go directly to Vaikuntha, because Vaikuntha is the spiritual world. One has to have qualification. So therefore, he was thinking, who else can I offer this lotus? Who is worthy to accept this lotus? And he thought of Lord Shiva. So therefore, I will go and see Lord Shiva, and I'll offer this lotus to Lord Shiva. So that is the story the swan was telling to Lord Shiva. This is how I got my color, and therefore this is how I got this golden lotus, and I'm now offering it to you. So Lord Shiva said, after that black swan completed his story and took birth, so what happened after he told this story to me, immediately he disappeared from view, and I can understand that he took birth as a Brahmana. So the swan now became a Brahmana, and he became the Brahmana called Dhira Buddhi in Varanasi. So this is the story behind this Brahmana Dhira Buddhi, and this is the reason why I am continuously serving this person, because he became a great devotee. After hearing Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, he became such a wonderful Vaishnava, a great personality, a devotee. He became very purified, and he was continuously chanting the chapter 10 Bhagavad Gita every day, constantly. And in this way, I was very eager to be of service to such a personality. And that is the story. And in this way, Lord Shiva was telling Parvati, and whoever would hear that chanting from this Dhira Buddhi would also attain darshan of Sri Vishnu, simply by hearing the chanting of this Dhira Buddhi, who is holding the Shankha and Chakra. So Vishnu, they will get the darshan of Chakrapani and Shankapani, the one who holds the chakra. Whoever would hear that chanting, whether they are fallen and addicted to intoxication. So even fallen people, even those who are addicted to intoxication, drunkards, even killers of Brahmanas, no matter how sinful they are, they would also attain the darshan of Sri Vishnu, who is holding the Shankha and Chakra. So Lord Shiva is telling Parvati. And then he says, my dear Parvati, whether one be male or female, sannyasi or grihastha, in fact, whatever situation one may be in, if he chants the 10th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, he will attain the darshan of Sri Vishnu without a doubt. So that is the glory of chapter 10, Bhagavad Gita. So we have heard this story. So we can see how association is very important. Simply by the Maina bird having associated with the sages, the Maina bird was able to somehow come in contact with Bhagavad Gita, very spiritual activities. So that's why we should try our best to associate with saintly personalities, because somehow the benefit of the saint, the blessings of the saintly personalities may come to us by serving them. We are very fortunate if we can somehow find an opportunity to serve saintly personalities or come in contact with them or even hear from them. So that is the idea. And you can see even great personalities want to continue hearing the Bhagavad Gita. Even Lord Shiva wants to, so someone who is a devotee, who is very pure in his activities, even great personalities want to render service to them. So that is the nature of the devotees. And so what is this chapter 10 then? So chapter 10, if you remember, it's called Vibhuti Yoga, the opulence of the absolute. So this, if you remember, chapter 9 is where Krishna will start telling in detail about devotional service. So in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1 was introduction, setting the scene. Chapter 2, Arjuna will be lamenting, and then Krishna will start giving him knowledge of the soul, starting with Atma Tattva. And then he will tell Arjuna there is something beyond. So don't think about simply gain and loss. There is duty. Duty is superior to gain and loss. So that is the beginning of Karma Yoga. Okay, but you should not simply do duty without knowledge, because ultimately the duty also is for you to gain knowledge. So therefore, chapter 4, Jnana Yoga, knowledge. But the goal of knowledge is actually to understand me. So therefore the verse comes, Janma Karma Chame Divyam, right? So one who understands my nature and my karma and my activities, he doesn't take birth again. Krishna says in chapter 4. So once we have knowledge, then Krishna says, perform your duty with knowledge. Then you will develop detachment. So that is chapter 5. Karma Yoga in Krishna consciousness. So with a higher goal, with a higher purpose. So in this way, perform your activity for my pleasure. And then after that, he will say, but then still there are some who may not take that path. So they will continue from Jnana Yoga, they will go on to do meditation. So then he talks about meditation in chapter 6. So this up to chapter 6, Krishna is talking about the Jnana path. And then Krishna begins talking about devotion in chapter 7. He starts telling more about himself, about the goal of devotion, to attain him, to understand him, to serve him. And then what it will give. By doing this, at the end of life, one will remember the Supreme Lord by his grace. So that is chapter 8, attaining the Supreme. And then after attaining the Supreme, he gives more details, how to really attain the Supreme. What are the details behind this devotional service? So that is chapter 9. He'll say, offer me, one who offers me a leaf, a fruit, a flower, water with devotion. So the practice of offering food to the Lord with love, that is devotional service. The practice of chanting, the practice of worship, offering obeisances, always satatam kirtayantu mam, right? Always chanting my names, always chanting my glories. So these are all devotional activities. The path of devotional service is discussed in chapter 9. And what's the goal of all these things? The goal is to ultimately, again, to remember the Lord. So Arjuna will ask, how can I remember you? Please tell me. So therefore, Krishna in chapter 10 will tell Arjuna how to remember him. So it begins with this verse. In verses 10.1 to 10.2, Krishna will tell to Arjuna, you will say this verse to Arjuna. Listen, O mighty armed Arjuna, Mahabahu, because you are my dear friend. For your benefit, I shall speak to you even further. Why is Arjuna the dear friend? So Arjuna is representing all of us. So the dear friend is one who has taken up the path of devotion. So then he becomes not just neutral, he becomes dear. Krishna says, I'm equal to all, but that's neutral. But when one becomes a devotee, Krishna takes extra care. So because you are my dear friend, for your benefit, I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than what I have already explained. Why it's better? In chapter 9, he spoke about devotional service. But in chapter 10, he'll speak about himself, how to attain, what is the goal of this devotional service? What is it all about? What's the essence of that devotional service? It's to basically to remember, to chant, to hear, to chant, and to remember the names, form, the qualities, and the pastimes of the Lord. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela. Nama is name, Rupa is the form, Leela is the pastimes, and Guna is the qualities of the Lord. So one who can always hear and chant and remember these four things about me, that is basically the ultimate goal of devotional service. And then to help Arjuna to understand, he will give further elaboration how to do this. Neither the host, so before he goes to talk about all that, he will tell Arjuna, what I'm about to tell you is very secret. Very few people understand this. Not even the Devatas, not all the Devatas will know this. They will also learn eventually. They'll have their leelas and pastimes where they will also understand. So neither the host of the Devatas nor the great sages like Durvasa Muni also doesn't know sometimes. Know my origin or opulence. For in every respect, I am the source of all, both the Devatas and the sages. So he tells Arjuna the confidentiality of it. But he who knows me as the unborn, as the beginningless, as the supreme, he only undeluded among men is freed from all sins. So this is the key verse, which is basically building the story of the, just now we mentioned, the story of Padmavati and all that, on the swan. So because only one who knows the Lord is completely freed from all sins. That means one who is a devotee. And that's why all the different sins, all the good qualities, like for example, that Padmavati took birth as a daughter of a Brahmana. She was very chaste, she was very wonderful, but still she got cursed. And when she got cursed for a mistake, her good karma didn't save her, because that's not the nature of karma. Doesn't work that way. Good activities doesn't save you from bad activities, right? We remember we have gone through karma before, the law of karma. Only spiritual activities can save one from bad qualities, right? So good activities will ensure good fortune will come our way, but at the same time there will also be, sometimes we may perform bad activities, wrong activities, and even accidentally, but still the reactions may come. And simply doing pious activities like serving the husband or all that cannot save one from the sinful activity also. But it can bring about good association, it can bring about good qualities, it can bring about remembrance, good nature, which will be helpful in one's when one decides to take up the path of devotion. So sometimes we wonder, so when devotional service is given to us, sometimes we feel enthusiastic. So when we feel enthusiastic, we can understand that is due to our good qualities from our past life, due to our pious activities. So the result of all these pious activities is we get the inclination, we get the faith to hear more about the scriptures. That itself is past good quality. So therefore, Krishna then continues, right? He goes on to elaborate about his nature. I am the cause of everything, he will say. Of all good qualities, of all great personalities, living entities. So therefore, he says, if at all anyone has any good quality, any personality is powerful, or any personality is beautiful or great, all these qualities are all coming from me, Krishna will say. He is the source of all good qualities. Every good qualities that is present in everyone else lives inside him in full. So that's what he says. And then Krishna goes on to talk about pure bhakti, ananya bhakti. Bhakti without any kind of desire, without any desire for gain or any kind of material tinge, without karma or jnana. It's pure devotional service, ananya bhakti. So he says, firm faith of Krishna's opulence and position is the key. One has to be very convinced about the position of the Supreme Lord and about his nature and qualities. So then the faith becomes very strong. How can we become convinced? By Shravanam and Kirtanam. So by hearing about him from scripture like Gita and Bhagavatam and all that, and also by chanting his names and repeating those verses, we will develop the faith. The faith will grow. And in this way, as the faith grows and we develop pure devotional service, Krishna also reciprocates. So Krishna is not someone who doesn't reciprocate. In our life, if we learn to see where are the different areas where Krishna reciprocates with us, we will find it. So as we develop, as we take up this chanting seriously, as we take up the path of devotion, you will see in different ways how Krishna will reciprocate with us. So how will he reciprocate? Therefore, he gives these verses. One who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mind, what he will do? When he develops, when he has this faith, what will he do? He will engage in pure devotional service. So now we are all trying to build that faith. We are performing devotional service, and in this way we strengthen our faith. One day our devotional service will transform into pure devotional service. So it doesn't matter, even if we have desires for sense gratification, even if we have other desires other than for Krishna, never mind, we still perform devotional service constantly with faith, and that will purify us, and one day that devotional service will transform into pure devotional service. And when that happens, when we do pure devotional service, Krishna gives this 4 Chatur Sloka, 10.8, very famous verses. Aham sarvasya prabhavo, mata sarvam pravartate, iti matva bhajanti mam, buddha bhava samanvitaha. So here Krishna is giving this verse to convince us about the actual position of the Lord, to have no more doubts. So the Supreme Lord of all creation, Aham sarvasya prabhavo. She says, who is that person who is worthy of worship? Aham sarvasya prabhavo. I am the one, aham, where everything, sarvasya, comes from me. I am the master and Lord, prabhavo. And then he says, mata sarvam pravartate. And I am the, everything is basically resting on me. It emanates from me. It comes from me. Just like how all the different universes are emerging from Mahavishnu's body, from the different pores. He has many, we all have pores in our skin. So from the pores of Mahavishnu, universes are emanating. So this is how everything is emanating from the Lord. Iti matva bhajanti mam. So therefore, such a person is worthy of worship. Who is worthy of worship? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, where everything comes from him. And iti matva bhajante. Bhajante means one who worships. So in this way, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. What do they do after knowing this? They completely dedicate their lives for the pleasure of the service of the Supreme Lord. So this is the nature of, and then who are these people who worship Krishna? How to recognize them? So therefore, the next verse is given, 10.9. Matchita matgata prana bodhayantas parasparam katayantas cha mam nityam tusyanti cha ramanti cha. So he says, matchita. How do we recognize such devotees? Recognizing them is very important because we want to associate with them and to serve them. But also, it's very important because that's the standard. So therefore, we also want to be like that. So therefore, we need to know what is that standard. So therefore, Krishna gives this second Chatur Sloka, 10.9. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Matchita, thinking always of me. Krishna says, Matgata prana, and their lives are fully devoted to my service. Matgata prana. Bodhayanta parasparam, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss. How do they get this great satisfaction and bliss? By katayantas cha mam nityam. They get this satisfaction and bliss by always hearing about me, about my activities, about my pastimes, about my nature, about my energies, about my qualities. So this is, and by hearing this, they get great satisfaction. Katayantas cha mam nityam tusyanti cha ramanti cha. Therefore, they get great satisfaction. Ramanti cha, very, very happy. So that is basically the pure devotees who follow the path of pure devotion. And what does Krishna do for them? Therefore, the next verse, Chatur Sloka 10.10. Tesham satata yuktanam vachatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give them what is necessary for them to come to me. I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. How does he give this understanding? Does he come and appear in front of our eyes and then he flies down with Garuda or comes down and says, nah, this is the manual for you to read? So it's already there in Bhagavad Gita, it's already there in Bhagavatam, and it's already there in the holy names of the Lord. But and with all these three, when we take advantage of all these three, what will happen? Krishna gives the next verse, 10:11. Tesham evanu kampartam aham ajnana jam tamaha nasayami atma bhavastho jnana deepena bhasvata. To them, to show them special mercy, I who am dwelling in their hearts. So Krishna is not far away, he's in our hearts only. So very easily within our heart, he will destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. He will remove our anarthas. He will remove our impurities. And he will give us the right understanding and the right knowledge and the right determination. Everything will come from him. And in this way, one can further advance in our devotional service. Our faith becomes stronger. So this is what happens. So therefore, chapter 10, Arjuna accepts and reconfirms. So after hearing about Ananya Bhakti, after hearing all this, from chapter 7, Arjuna will, from chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, Arjuna will be silent. He will be listening to Krishna. And finally, after hearing all this, Arjuna has heard enough. he's fully convinced, his illusion is destroyed, and then he falls down to Krishna and he gives wonderful prayers to the Lord. Arjuna accepts and reconfirms the position of the Supreme Lord. So Arjuna will start telling, "Oh Purushottama, you are Purushottama." Purushottama means the ultimate person, the supreme person. Purusha Uttama. Purusha means the ultimate enjoyer. Purusha means enjoyer. Uttama means the ultimate or the supreme. So Purusha Uttama, you are the supreme enjoyer. And then he says, you are Bhuta Bhavana. That means you are the origin of everything. So first you telling me, now I am also telling you, yes, I'm convinced that you are all these things. You are Bhuta Bhavana, origin of everything. And you are Bhutesha, Bhuta Isha. Isha means controller or the Lord, and Bhuta means the living entities. So you are the Lord of the living entities, Bhutesha. You are Deva Deva, the Lord of the Devas. You are Jagat Pate, the Lord of the entire universal creation. Pati means the Lord. Jagat means universal creation. Param Brahma, you are the ultimate truth, Brahma. Truth means the Param. So there are different levels of truth. You are the ultimate Parabrahman. You are Param Dhamma, the ultimate abode. And you are Pavitram Paramam, the ultimate purifier. And you are Paramam Purusham, the ultimate person. And you are Shashvatam, you are eternal. And you are Divyam, you are transcendental, spiritual, beyond matter, never touched by matter. And you are Adi Devam, the original Supreme Lord. And you are Ajam, one who is unborn. So although you appear to take birth in different situations, but actually you are unborn, Ajam. And you are Vibhum, extremely great. So the Vibhu means very large, extremely large, larger than the largest, greater than the greatest. That's Vibhum. So Arjuna, after hearing from Krishna, he will again say all these things in beautiful prayer in all the verses. You can find all these words in verses 10.12 to 10.15, where Arjuna will offer these prayers. So we can also memorize these prayers, which is given by Arjuna, and we can chant that whenever we pray. So it's a wonderful glorification of the Lord. And all great sages have confirmed this. Arjuna is telling Krishna. Not only you are telling me, I am also telling you, and I have also heard all the great sages say the same thing, like Narada, Devala, Vyasa. So these are the great sages who are confirming the same truth. Sukadev Goswami, so like that. And even the Devatas do not fully understand your glory or your position. So therefore, they are always trying to find out. So this is the chapter so far. Arjuna accepts and reconfirms. And finally, the chapter ends with these verses 10.16 all the way to 10.42, where Krishna will tell Arjuna how Arjuna, you can remember me. Because Arjuna will ask, please tell me how I can always remember you, how I can always hear about you, how I can always think about you. So then Krishna will start telling all about his potencies, all about his greatness. So one of the things he says, there is no being, moving or non-moving, that can exist without me. And then he will also say, of all sacrifices, I am chanting of the holy names. So, and therefore, here is the verse which talks about chanting in Bhagavad Gita. And then he will start telling about different entities. Like, for example, he will talk about all this we've mentioned before. So I'm just putting them here. I'm wondering whether you can remember some of them. Because Krishna will say, right? I will give a hint. Like amongst birds, right? It's a very easy one. I am, anyone remembers? Krishna will say, amongst birds, I am Garuda. He'll say, amongst birds, I am Garuda, right? So he's talking about the greatest for everything. Anyone remembers any of this? Among Munis, I am Vyasa. Among Deva Rishis, I am Narada.
Yes.
Among priests, anyone remembers? I am Brihaspati, the priest of the Devatas. Among beasts, what am I? The lion, right? Among beasts, I am the lion, king of the beasts. Among birds, Garuda. Among Devas, who's the king of the Devas?
Indra.
Yes, among Devas, I am Indra. Among Rudras, so there are 12 Rudras. So the leader of the Rudra is Lord Shiva. So among Rudras, I am Shiva, like that he will say. And among generals, who is the general of the Devas?
Not Muruga.
Yes, Kartikeya, Muruga. So he's the ultimate general. Among generals, I'm Kartikeya. Among judges, I am
Yama.
Yes. Amongst Yamaraj is he's known as Dharmaraj, so he's the ultimate judge. Super fair. You cannot cheat him. Among senses, this is a bit more difficult. We have 5 senses. The king of the 5 senses is the mind, right? 6th sense, the mind. Among poetry, I am the Gayatri, right? Among creators, who's the greatest? Who's the amongst creators? Who are the
Brahma?
Yes,
Brahma.
amongst creators, Brahma. Among lights, what is the greatest source of light that we know?
The sun.
Yes, the sun. Amongst the lights, I am sun. Among cows, I am Surabhi. Yes. Among nagas, I am
Vasuki.
Okay, Vasuki is Sarpa, the snakes, right? Naga is a different species. So among Nagas, I am, which is the other large snake that we know? Lord Narayana lies on a bed of
Adishesha.
Adisesha. Correct. He's also called Ananta. Amongst Nagas, I am Ananta or Adisesh. Among immovable things in earth, what is the largest immovable thing? So it's the
Mountain.
Himalayas. Yes, mountains. Himalayas. Himalaya is the largest mountain range. Among water bodies, I am the ocean, right? Among trees, who remembers this?
Banyan.
Yes, banyan tree. Thank you. And we have among secrets, I am what's the king of secrets? Among secrets, I am silence.
Among what, Prabhu?
Secrets. Among secrets, I am silence. If you want to keep a secret, the best thing is to be silent, right? So Krishna is telling here, among secrets, I am silence. Among subduers, all that subdues, I am time. Time is the greatest subduer. The greatest personality, the greatest conquerors in the world are all dust and bones now, right? Among science, amongst all the sciences, I am, what is the king of the sciences? Don't say physics. The king of the sciences is the knowledge of the soul. So that is science. Atma Tattva, chapter 2. Amongst vibrations, sound, what am I? Om. Amongst vibrations, I am Om. Omkara. Amongst rivers, this is easy. I am the Ganga, right? Your name, Taji, Janavi. Janavi is another name for Ganga. So amongst fishes, I am the shark. And among seasons, I am spring. So like that, there are many more, Krishna will say. So we can also remember in how to remember the Lord like this. And of all creations and beings, I am the beginning, middle, and the end. But know that all these opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations that you see everywhere around you are simply but a spark of my splendor. So in this way, we can train ourselves to see Krishna and to remember Krishna in everything, in whatever that we meet, to see the hand of the Lord in every situation. So, and basically, chapter 10 is setting the scene for hearing more about Krishna, because chapter 10 is elaborated further in Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam will go on 18,000 verses, all talking about the glories of the Lord, about the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord. So these are basically the chapter 10, the glories and the summary. I've given the summary of chapter 10. Okay, so now it's 9 o'clock. I will just quickly go to practical spirituality and we will end. So for practical spirituality, we covered many things. We talked about the seven different gates of going back to the spiritual, the boats. Remember, Tulasi, Prasad, and also Charnamrita, and chanting of the holy names, Ganga, Ekadasi. So all this we've spoken about before. And we also spoke about Dharma. What are the 4 legs of Dharma? So now I was thinking we will go to this book. This is called Nectar of Instruction. You can buy it from the temple also, but it's okay. I'm just going to go through a few verses. So today I will just go through one verse. This Nectar of Instruction is a book written by Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami is the direct disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he instructed many things to many people. So Rupa Goswami is one of the main foremost acharyas in our sampradaya. And he has given lots of instruction after hearing from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually instructed Rupa Goswami to write. And amongst many of the things that he wrote, he told about what are the basic things about devotional service. Elaborate further about devotional practice, about bhakti. So therefore, he wrote a book called Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And from there, the summary of that is this Nectar of Instruction, Sri Upadeshamrita. So this Nectar of Instruction gives a lot of important things about what we can do to improve our devotion. So the first verse, there are mantras in here, and the first mantra is Vacho Vegam Manasa Krodha Vegam Jivva Vegam Udara Pashta Vegam Etan Vegan Yo Vishaheta Dhiraha Sarvam Apimam Prithvim Sasisyat. So what's the meaning of that verse? That verse, basically, it says, the translation goes like this. A sober person who can tolerate. So if we want to advance in our devotional practice, if we want to continue advancing, we should have these qualities, or we should cultivate these qualities. So therefore, a sober person who can tolerate what? So one has to be sober. So that's why, no intoxication and things like that. So a sober person can tolerate the urge to speak. So this has to be controlled. The urge to speak, vacho vegam. Vacho means speech, vacha. So vegam means the urge. So one who controls the urge to speak. So the description here is unnecessarily speaking about mundane topic, or speaking about gossip, or whatever it is. So all these things, we should try to control that. the tongue should be used primarily to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the actual proper use of the tongue. So everything else we should try to minimize as much as possible. One who controls the urge to speak, that means he doesn't let his tongue get away with him. And for that, there is also the austerity of speech. Remember chapter 17 Bhagavad Gita, there will be one verse where it says, there are filters we have to put before we speak, austerities, such as we should speak only what is truthful, satyam, right? And then we should speak what is not agitating to one's mind, anudvega karam. That means we shouldn't say things which agitates people's mind, which gives them trouble, which gives them a disturbance. And as far as possible, not all the time it may be possible, but as far as possible, we should speak pleasing words. So priyam, sweet, nice tone, proper mood. And most important, it should be hitam, beneficial. And also very important, but not always applicable sometimes, it should be in line with scriptural support. That means it should be in line with scriptures, either reciting scripture or passing information which is in line with scripture. So these are the filters which we should keep in our mind before we speak. So as far as possible, one who is trained, one should tries to come to this point. That is called vacho vegam, able to control the urge to speak. And a sober person who can tolerate the mind's demands, manasa vegam. Manasa means mind, the urges of the mind. The mind will say, the mind is the nest of all kinds of desires which we have inherited from our previous lives. And it will tell us, do this, do that, do that. So we have to control the urges of our mind. So manasa vegam, to only those things which are acceptable. And then krodha vegam, one who controls the urges, the actions of anger. That means we do not allow anger to get the better of us. Anger has a proper utility. Anger should also be utilized only in the service of the Lord. For example, a Kshatriya wants to fight to uphold dharma. In order to fight, they need to have anger. Otherwise, they cannot fight with bravery. So that is using anger correctly in the service of dharma. That is acceptable. But otherwise, anger for the satisfaction of our own desires, that should be avoided. So this is the krodha vegam. Krodha is anger. And a sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue. Jivva vegam. Jivva is tongue. Urges of the tongue here refers directly to eating. One who can control his eating. One who doesn't eat too much, one who doesn't eat too little, one who only eats those foodstuffs which are not, which are prescribed for human beings, vegetarian type of foodstuff, as much as possible to be in the mode of goodness. And vacho vegam means one who can train and control his tongue to eat only food which is offered to the Lord, prasadam. That is the ultimate vacho, jiva vegam, controlling the tongue. So the tongue, you can see here, is speech as well as food. When it begins, so if at all we want to start anything, it begins with the tongue. So if we can control our tongue, the acharyas say we can at the same time control our mind and at the same time control our anger. So this is the secret. If we want to control anger, if we want to control our mind, it begins with the tongue. The tongue is the starting point. That's why we chant Hare Krishna, because chanting also is with the tongue. So we purify the tongue by chanting, and we purify the tongue by eating prasadam. And in this way, we try to control the tongue from forbidden things. So if we cannot control our tongue, then spiritual life or elevation in spiritual life will be very difficult. It will be a slow process with many, many difficulties. So that's the idea here, the tongue. And if we can control the tongue, what are the next urges to control? The urges of the belly. So not to overeat, not to undereat, and sometimes fasting and all that. So by controlling the tongue, automatically the belly becomes controlled. The stomach becomes controlled. All the problems that we may have, gastric, all these, whatever, all will go away. And at the same time, the belly will not dictate our mind. So that's very important. And the genitals. Jiva Vegam, Udara means belly, Pashta means the genitals, Vegam. So there are people who cannot control their sexual desires. So that also is necessary to be controlled. So it has to be done according to Dharma. So that is basically these things. A sober person who can tolerate these and controls these, what can that person do? So such a person is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So this is the ultimate requirement for a spiritual master or a guru. But it doesn't mean that we don't have to work that way. This is basically the standard. So we all should try to come towards this standard. And by the grace of Krishna, by chanting the holy names, automatically these things can be achieved. So that's why Krishna gives so much of help. The names are there, the wonderful prasadam of the Lord is there. So in this way, this can be conquered. So that's basically on practical spirituality. So how we can try to consciously keep this in our thoughts, in our day-to-day life. And there are many ways we can work on this. So if there's anything to be discussed on this, we are happy to do that. Or if you want to raise any points or any questions, we can also look into this. Okay, so it's now 9:13, so we'll end by giving food for the soul. So that food is our chanting of Hare Krishna. So let us chant together. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Yes, Mataji. I'll come to the questions after this chanting. Okay. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Tat Sat. I have questions. Yes, Mataji, you wanted to say something?
Actually, I want to know, just now you read the verses from the Nectar of Devotion.
Nectar
Can
of
I know,
Instruction.
Nectar of Instruction, yeah. Can I know which page is it, Prabhu?
It will be the first verse. I don't know the page, but it will be the first verse.
Okay.
Verse number 1.
Okay, Prabhu. It's very nice meaning.
It's a very nice book. It's actually, it gives a lot step-by-step instruction. First what to do, then what to do. And it's very arranged beautifully. And it's a very thin book. If you want to buy it, you can. It's about 10 ringgit or so, I think. I can help to get it for you, or you can get it from the temple, or you can order online. They will send it to you. So anyway, let me know if you want me to help you with that.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Anything else anyone wants to raise? Hare Krishna, Dato, you're here. Missed you last week.
I was caught in the I got caught in the rain.
I
was coming from Sri Kembangan after my hospital checkup. Terrible. The rain was terrible, and sorry, I'm late.
No problem. I was just yes. So anyone, Dato, you want to say anything or comment or whatever? Any questions?
No, not today.
Okay. Thanks. So, anyone else? So I hope it's clear. And if you have any questions also, I'm happy to answer anytime. Just WhatsApp, put it in the group, or you can send it to me if it's something personal, and no issues. We can come back to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
You,
Thank you. So if that's the case, then we can end here. So Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Sri Sri Radha Govinda Radha Krishna ki jai. Hare Bol.
oh, hope you had a good
Hare
birthday.
Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.